Do I even want to bring this up?
It's up to you.
CIA agent started going to the coffee hour.
Another turn I didn't expect. That is not what I thought you were going to say. Interesting episode. I love everything you said. I love the twists and turns. There was a couple of surprises. I was like, wow, okay, this is awesome.
I started in a basement with VHS tapes and books and flyers, homemade documentaries.
Chimatica.
And they had Alex Jones.
Max Egan and Michael Tessarian. But yeah, that's when I first saw Loose Change.
In the woo-woo land, we had the whole Mayan calendar.
Remember What the Bleep Do We Know? Quantum physics stuff.
Psychedelics.
Someone that was really into Atlantis and Lemuria.
That's when I met Jay. I put on, who do you want to hear on my show? On Facebook, and I get all these replies, Jay Dyer, Jay Dyer, Jay Dyer. I'm like, okay. So we had him on, and he was really awesome, and he did like the whole show as Nicolas Cage. And the first time at his house that I ever saw Icon, texting back and forth and reading the Bible together every night. One night I was literally hiding in a walk-in closet with all the lights out for the tweakers that are also in the house to forget that I'm there in a dark walk-in closet and with the door shut. And I'm like on the phone to Jay. He's like, this is why you need to like come marry me. And I'm like, okay. So then we got married in 2020. The bishops in their like black hats and black robes and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? Hogwarts? Like
wizards.
No priests were like, oh, I'm sick of hearing that you heard about the church through Jay Dyer and we don't like him.
And also argue that there's a lot of people that have come to the faith through his work and others like him.
You have to love your neighbor and forgive the people at your parish. And these are the wackadoodles that are going to like lead to your salvation. Where we are now with the Orthodox online and also like weird masculinity ideas, red pill ideas, trad stuff. So it's all kind of being funneled into some kind of like religious man. Sad thing to watch from like what me and my friends started. Now men and women don't even love each other anymore. Please don't make somebody online your Orthodox, like not even me, not even Mano, not Jay, not anybody. I defer all of the big questions for your life to your spiritual father, right?
All right, welcome to the study of stuff. My name, as always, is Mano, and with me today is Jamie Hanshaw. Most of my audience, if not all of my audience, already knows exactly who you are, and for sure, because that's predominantly my audience is very much your audience. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Jamie. Big reason being is I think a lot of our backgrounds of where we've started and where, how we got to Orthodoxy is kind of similar. For me coming back to Orthodoxy, you coming to Orthodoxy. But we both kind of came out of that, early like 2000s truth movement / conspiracy, David Icke, 9/11, right out of Y2K, and then, the 2012 stuff and energy this and energy that, and, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
And I actually remember
Mayan calendar.
Yes.
That one. Yeah.
Absolutely. All of that stuff. And I think it's an important thing to kind of revisit because a lot has happened since then. There was a lot of truths in those little pockets of information, but there was also a lot of lies. Yeah. And so, I wanted to kind of get your story, where you started and how you got to Orthodoxy. So whatever you think is relevant, whatever stops you want to make along the way in terms of like the quote unquote truth movement stuff, I'm happy to hear it and pitch in some of my information. So where do you want to go?
So
How
my
do you want to
origin
start?
story, is that what we're doing tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Origin. And we're going to definitely talk a lot of Orthodoxy when we get there because of the inversions.
Okay. Yeah. I was raised Protestant, went to a little private school, like a church school, till I was 6th grade. And then I was homeschooled. I guess what you would call it nowadays, the word floating around, I hate to like self-diagnose things, but like neurodivergent or just kind of like different or, I don't know, too sensitive maybe for school. Just a little too, I don't know. I ended up alone a lot at recess making mud pies by myself. So my
Okay.
parents were like, why are we paying all this money if, she just like fakes sick a lot and tries to stay home and read books, because that's what I liked to do when I was young. Like, I didn't want to interact. I just wanted to learn. And that's
Okay.
not what school is for. And it's also very stifling in other ways too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Particularly, I hate getting up. So, this is like my childhood. Like, I hate waking up early. So, I would already be like dressed and sitting on the porch before I was even awake. So my parents were like, let's just let her homeschool herself. And so this was
Okay.
in the 90s. Like, that was a very strange thing to do
Mm-hmm.
in the early 90s. I only knew one other girl in my childhood at that time that was a homeschooler. So this was like a very pioneering thing. So we got like videotapes of a curriculum, like a private school curriculum, where you just plop in the VHS tape, and in the VCR, and like do your own little work. And I figured out pretty early on that you don't even need to do that, like, because my parents were always they're artistic, lenient type, but also very strict in other ways. So I wasn't allowed to watch like scary movies or
Oh, really?
cartoons. Yeah. Or like cartoons with occult themes like Smurfs, or, they were strict on that, but lenient in other ways. Like, if you want to pursue music or you want to pursue reading or whatever, what are you? So they just kind of gave me carte blanche on my education.
That's pretty cool, actually.
So that's kind of how I learned to just be an autodidact of lots of different things. And also my personality was also like very meek and mild. So I get like, interactions, how like introverts are, very
Yes.
sensitive type, like thin skin,
Yep.
amphibious, like I want to be alone now with my book. You guys can go beat each other up, right? So that's kind of how I grew up. Also, there was conspiracy theories being leaked in the 90s. These are like classics by now, but so like FEMA camps.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
What else? The black helicopters are
Yep.
watching.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. I remember those.
The Clinton Chronicles, I remember.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Clinton's like, unaliving people
Mm-hmm.
back in the 90s. What else? So
There
like,
was like Agenda 21, the Y2K stuff. That was when it was like all percolating.
right. So, but this is like even pre Y2K. So like 95, 90, even
Okay.
earlier than that. So like, take those things that I'm aware of through my parents, bringing materials into the house, and also like listening to a lot of Bible preachers on the radio, like that do like.
I didn't see
Okay.
that coming. For conspiracy of the
Okay.
Bible preachers.
Set the stage for like what the environment that I'm growing up in. My mom's very like activist, like pro anti-abortion back in the day. So we would picket things.
Yep.
Okay. Um,
Yep. Yep.
and what else? So, and like she always loved to listen to this one guy named Bob Larson who does these exorcist night. I don't know. It sounds crazy. Probably half the people were actors
Mm-hmm.
calling in, but this is like a daily diet of this kind of stuff. TBN,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Rapture,
Yeah. Yeah.
End Times, Biblical, John Hagee. Like, who are those people with the pink hair on the Jesus channel? Like,
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. We had the 700 Club and all those kinds. They would be like on that channel with the 700 Club and all that. I remember that.
so yeah, this is what I was. You wouldn't last a minute in the asylum that I grew up in, like hearing all of this stuff, right? So that was like my childhood, and then when the internet came along and like 9/11 happened, it was even more of a like, wow, this doesn't add up and this doesn't add up. And then you're also taking in things that today would be considered like liberal or leftist, but back then it was just kind of what I'm thinking of, like Michael Moore documentaries.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Bowling for Columbine and all that.
Yeah. And then like how dirty the Bushes were in Saudi Arabia. Yep. And you don't trust anybody. So like Democrats, like Clintons are bad, Bushes are bad. So you get this idea, like, I didn't know what it was called at the time. It's the dialectic, right? The false dialectic.
Yep.
So as a result of this, I've never voted in an election because I'm like, all you get for this is jury duty, man. I promise. Like, that's how they punish you.
Yeah, it's true.
So what else? I read David Icke book in about 2005, 2006.
I remember those days.
So that just kind of like opens up this whole other, blows the lid off of like what you think is conspiracy. So we're like, now it's spiritual. Yep. Now it's like intergalactic somehow. Now it's getting weird about like ancient aliens and shape-shifting beings. And so you're like, what is even happening? And at the same time, you're watching things like Zeitgeist. So I watched that at almost around the same time. And you're like, well, religion is a scam also, because like taxes are a scam. How laws are made, like any person just paying attention to more academic things in the 2000s is like have to learn about lobbying, like cover-ups of tobacco industry, cover-ups of chemical, Monsanto.
Plastics.
Yeah. So
did you watch like Esoteric Agenda and Kymatica as well?
Totally. And I met them.
Ben Joseph Stewart. I interviewed him as well a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember like it's interesting revisiting those guys and like watching that stuff again. It's kind of like there's truth in there, but so much crap on top of it. Like the sun god stuff. Oh.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. So I then you watched Alex Jones. I learned of him. And he was already a legend when he did that Bohemian Grove thing. Like he came out straight out of the gate like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then people want to come argue with you about politics or whatever. And you're like, you tell me what Bohemian Grove is about. And then you can tell me like who I should vote for, because this is crazy.
True. True.
And then, so now we're getting up to like Ron Paul days. And in my boundaries of like what's right and wrong in religion and like where do we come from is very much being broken down to like nothing.
Yep.
Because the like things like Zeitgeist and you're trying to reconstruct your reality and trying to get like snippets of truth because you've realized like freaking everything is a lie, like even down to like the way that they have prescribed me birth control all these years or whatever for whatever reason. And so it's just like everything's a scam. So you're kind of, set adrift in a little dinghy on an ocean and looking for some kind of landmass.
Yep. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. So I went to Austin because I thought that was like the aware people capital.
Yeah, Alex Jones for sure.
And we would hang out at this place called Brave New Books. It's not there anymore, but it was like the
wait. They used to do a radio show, didn't they? From there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that.
You go down and it was like underneath, and so you felt like you're in a bunker. Like we're on the front lines of like this radical, organic, and it was neat. It was like there was not a lot of like personalities in it yet.
Yep.
Not a lot of people had like pulled ahead in some kind of like horse race that we have watched it grow into. So I've been like in the corner watching it all from kind of like a front row seat because I've like mingled with all of these people and nobody really knows who I am. So I have a very interesting perspective of like all of the people in this arena.
For sure.
And it's been fun. It's been really fun. So you felt like it was like something, and we thought, we were gonna get the word out, and there's some kind of gotta be a tipping point. If you convince like X amount of people that federal income tax is unlawful, maybe we would just stop writing the checks, and then things can start to improve. Like, we wanted very simple things back in the day. We didn't want men and women to hate each other like they do now.
Yeah, that's so true.
Just watching like what the seeds were and what it has like been like groomed into being is like some kind of monster now. It's just crazy with engagement farming. So we started in a basement with VHS tapes and books, right? And flyers and like PowerPoint presentations and homemade documentaries, like amazing stuff that you just brought up, like Benjamin, what's his Chymatica?
Ben Joseph Stewart. Yeah,
Ben Stewart.
Chymatica.
And you had Alex Jones, and you had like Freeman, and you had
Max Egan.
Max Egan. Yeah, we met him in Australia. He was amazing.
Yeah, I met him here in Mexico. And Michael Tessarian and those cats. Yeah.
Yes. So it was a really like a fun, exciting. Benny Wills and I actually did a show about like what happened to us, like what happened to this alt media. Now it's Ben Shapiro and Candace, and like crazy things are being manipulated from on high with
absolutely
slick operations. We were not that. We were like very homemade, like barely even digital era, like because this is before YouTube even.
Was it Google Video, or what was it called?
Google Video.
Google Video. Yeah, that's when I first saw Loose Change, and I was like, you can do that? I remember like just thinking you could just make a video at home and just put it on a thing. It's like crazy. Yeah.
And I remember watching that, I'm in my 20s, like, and watching Loose Change and just being like, this is, your mind gets blown every day almost. Back in the early 2000s, conspiracy videos were so good.
It was.
And you could just like sit there for weeks and months and go down these different rabbit holes. But now there's so much crazy disinformation.
Yes.
And the thing is saturated too. Yeah, but so where were we? Like just.
So you're at the basement, just talking about the homegrown stuff.
Yeah. And what else do we have? Like Creature in Jekyll Island.
Yes.
We thought, like I said, we thought if we could get people to vote for Ron Paul, or just realize that there's so many occultists in politics. And back at that time, people were not ready for that conversation. Like, because they were just like, "What do you mean they do rituals? Like, what are you talking about?" Like, so we had to start, baby steps with that. But also back at that time, we didn't know how to monetize things. Because you didn't have those ways that you do now. Like YouTube didn't pay you. Google didn't pay you. Like social media, there was no money. So back then they were like, "Well, get a sponsor." I'm like, who wants to sponsor a tinfoil hat? Weird show of someone who thinks like the president is a pharaoh. Like, that's crazy.
I remember that. Oh my God. Yeah.
So, not a lot of, normies with money are going to go for that content.
That's true.
Right? Maybe patriot stuff, but that stuff gets so boring really fast. Like how you could probably take a fifth grader in like 2 days and teach them how corrupt the system is. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally.
And they'll probably be bringing up good points about it. So that's how dumb it is.
It is. Because there was also that other side of it too. Because I went down the remember What the Bleep Do We Know? Before The Secret, there was What the Bleep Do We Know, and all that quantum physics stuff,
Yes,
and
down the rabbit hole.
Amit Goswami and all those cats. I actually interviewed him at one point. I can't believe it. And then like all that energy stuff and sigils and sacred
Yeah.
geometry, 432 hertz, all of that stuff. It's like it was all like put on the table, and everyone kind of picked what they wanted to focus on. Like I had friends that were like really into aliens, and someone that was really into Atlantis and Lemuria and all that kind of stuff. And it was a weird time. And the way that you described it, it's true. It's like kind of like you're swimming. How did you put it? You're like in a little boat floating around with all this
You're
information.
cast adrift in a dinghy, and you don't even know what to cling on to, because
It's
like
true.
you're like, is Jesus even real? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. It's true.
And you try and like look at all your like Christian people that and you're like, well, they are kind of messed up, like so your mind is like going in all of these different places. And so there did come a point where we lived like I said, we didn't know how to monetize this at that time, so we were living off donations, like literal miracles. Like, how are we going to pay the rent? And someone's like, bam, you blew my mind, here's $1,000. And so in a way that was really good to learn that you're never as like screwed as you think you are.
True.
And if you just like calm down, things are going to work out. Usually, like, you're not going to end up on the street, like homeless. If you just keep on doing your thing and plugging and like being responsible, like not crazy about it, but we did have to live on a school bus at one point. But we made the best of that too.
That could actually be fun though. Like living on a school bus.
Amazing adventure. Like, that's the way you frame things. Like, we were like reframing it. Like, yeah, we can't afford this, that. Okay, so because you fall in with a lot of people who also don't have direction.
Yep.
And if you're not like marriage family minded, like I was like, well, if I don't join this movement to get the word out, we're all going to be in a FEMA camp by 2024. I totally thought that this was not going to be a thing. Like, I was like, they scare you so much with the zeitgeist and like all of the sequels, and you just get so negative. Like, and also you get this false sense of their power. Right?
Yes.
Like, they could pull the plug at any minute. So it's true that our, system is very precarious. Like, if the trucks stop running, the food doesn't go to Kroger, you don't get food. Like, I recognize that real fast. Where does my water come from? They can shut that off at any time, or they can poison it at any time, So you start to realize, and now I don't trust authority. Okay. I'm thinking you can't trust anyone. And like, morality is this weird thing that you have to make up. So you start trying to psychedelics.
Right. Oh yes. Right? I forgot about that. Yep.
What's after patriotism and not atheism, but just kind of like agnostic. In a way. So you start doing drugs, right? We did them, we did the LSD, we did the mushrooms, we did the DMT. That's the big three. That I didn't ever do ayahuasca because I don't want to puke.
And this, the first half hour is horrible, I heard.
Like, I don't need to know those mysteries that much. Like, so, and plus, all this time, I'm trying to be normal. Okay, I think I'm a normal person. Like, I think I have a pretty ordered mind about things and fair. But when you run into a normie, you realize how weird you are.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yep.
But you're like, am I weird or are you weird? Because the way that you're thinking and behaving is super weird. Not me.
It's totally, because they're like in
to take stabbies from people who say that they want to reduce the population. That's really weird.
You'd think that'd be obvious though, but I guess not.
So we had a lot of, psychedelic experiences, enough that I never wanted to like go meet beings on the other side. Right. I just kind of wanted to be like peek through, like poke and be like, okay, what does it look like? And then come back, you know?
Yeah.
I know people who've done so much, the beings are like, you need to stop doing this and go get a job. Like, you've learned all you can from us.
They're like, we're tired of you, man.
Yes,
That's so
literally.
awesome. That's awesome. Maybe not so awesome.
But we had like the full-on experience. So at this time, I was also studying a lot of occult and mind control.
Yep.
So I did never take the occult for something that was very uplifting, because at the same time I was learning about that, I was also learning about monarch mind control.
Yep.
And how they use the occult for this stuff. So I'm like, I'm constantly trying to separate like the good from the bad in what I'm learning, because high magic sounds really nice. It sounds very illustrious and sanctimonious and ceremonial magic. It's like, oh, we're praying to our archangels to like join with our spirit twin of the opposite sex so we can be alchemical gods and blah blah. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I was
that old chestnut, right?
I was there.
Yeah. Well, I've got to find my twin flame so we can like be Nicholas Flood and make alchemical gold and all of this stuff.
Exactly. I was big into Hermeticism. Like the Kabbalion was like what I called, unfortunately, my Bible at one point. So I was totally into that stuff, like deep.
So we studied a lot, and also black magic, because you have to. We were also conspiracy people, and you come up against this, like at Bohemian Grove, or just learning what the CIA monarch mind control, and then you learn about Michael Aquino and his projects with the army in the military in San Francisco.
But he has those eyebrows. The eyebrows are perfect. Like,
I know. He had
could you imagine being at the CIA with eyebrows like that? Like everyone's like normal, and then you have those eyebrows.
Well, you gotta lean into it sometimes, man. Like, play the hand you're dealt. Look what Anton LaVey looked like. He looked exactly like the part that he played, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just like when you brought up the eyebrows.
Yeah. So you're learning like military is in on the occult, which uses this in the pop music, and it's all tied into the marketing and the advertising and the crap at Disneyland that you buy, and Mickey Mouse is evil and actually like you're the mouse.
Yep.
In the rat maze that they make you, and they, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
You're literally in a petri dish called the culture media that they are growing. So when you know these things, you get a lot of outcasts in your life. And outcasts also have other, mental challenges, like we all do, like I do, we all have those anxieties or paranoid delusions or whatever. So I'm not saying they're bad, but it's just people who don't fit in. They can't hold down the job. They can't plug in and be the widget that they need to be to accumulate the safe spaces to live, right?
Yep.
So they end up being tour kids or deadheads or lot kids or real sweet people. But they are very counterculture. And those are sadly used as their own types of control groups also to experiment on in different ways. Right? So we were at a point we were feeding lots of people out of my house.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, just because we lived in a place where the downtown was very close to our house. And so the kids they knew that you could get like a meal and a bowl and somewhere to just squat for a second and hear some funny stories or weird tales or government conspiracies. It was just the place,
Yeah, that's
it was that place. It was, and one day I'm a sucker. I can't say no if people are in trouble. So we're having to house 5, 6, 7 people on the floor, on the couch, in the closet, right? And these Christians came to my door one day and they knocked on the door and they're like, do you want to come to our church? And I love church. Like, I grew up with it. I was always trying to get these guys to think about, like, you know, I don't know. I just like missed Jesus in my life, I guess, at that time, because I went from being a very Christian household to now I'm an adult. Now I'm doing LSD and living among the hippies, not as one, but like as a, like I'm in the tribe, but not of it. If that makes any sense.
Totally. Me too.
But I've
So
been
how old were you at that point?
I'm almost turning 30.
Okay. Yeah.
So 20s was like the transition from California to Austin. So California was like the perfect, you know, place. Southern California in your 20s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. Like, they can't get better than that. But I'm watching all this stuff and I'm like, this shit's going to come crashing down like that.
Yep.
Also, California might fall in the ocean. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Google videos, so I don't know. Right? The big one might be. So that's when I went to Austin, and then from Austin we went to Kansas, and that's when we had that place that was kind of the hub of the Lost Boys, we'll call them, right?
Okay.
Not the weirdos of town, but like they were very intelligent, creative, other things. They just were, like I said, we're not made to be not part of your system, bro.
Yeah. I remember those days clearly.
Yeah. And so the Christians came and they're like, do you want to come to church? And I was like, you know what? I think all these guys would benefit from some church, right? And I said, yeah, so what do you got by way of like rides? And do you guys have like food and clothes? Because this one guy doesn't even have a leg, okay? And like his prosthetic and his like clothes kind of stink. And
okay.
I was like, yeah, what do you got for us? And they're like, well, nothing like that. And I'm like, but they're hungry. You know? Do you have any canned goods? And these are I had a rule, if you have to stay here, you're going to go apply for food stamps so we can at least like contribute. So we've got all these guys on food stamps too, right? And they were like, no, we don't have any resources or anything, earthly. And I was like, what about like rides to interviews or, hookups to, does anybody need work at your church or like any sort of, what's the word? Community?
Yeah. Or like some Christian sort of thing. Yeah.
And they said nothing like that. I was like, okay, slam. I'm not that mean, but I was just kind of like, you have nothing for me because I'm already doing all of this like charity work.
Yep.
Because I was trying to be a good person, and I had mercy on the people that also didn't have a lot like me. Like if I have, $1, you have 50 cents. That's kind of like how I was.
Okay.
Because they had nothing and I had $1. Okay.
Yeah. That's what kind of Christians were they that came to your door? Like just some random Protestant type thing, or something?
Just some random pop up, young, kind of like fun church of fun.
Yeah. The church of fun, the church of fun. Yeah.
And I did have an experience too where I had all of this. Before I wrote my books, I had all of this like research on Disney and all of these like facts and all of this stuff. And I was like, they're using the occult to like mind control your kids and transform them into this and that. And I thought a church would like eat this up, right? And I had a meeting with a female pastor at like one of the biggest churches in the town. I don't know why I get these ideas. I just like rang her up one day. I'm like, would you like to hear a PowerPoint presentation about Disney?
A female pastor at that.
Yeah. She's like, okay. So I gave her my spiel and then I brought up the Freemasons and she's just kind of like, was not vibing at all. Like, and I just kind of like slowly packed up because I thought maybe your youth group wouldn't know that, you know, freaking cartoons are boiling their brains and turning them into like witches and like consumers. So she kindly passed on that. Hard pass. So there was a lot of obstacles at that time, being a tinfoiler hatter. What else? How do we even figure out how to like make money? So the only thing to do back then was you had to like make a member's content of your own.
Yep. I remember that.
And the people who did that were able to progress and like have that as their job. But a lot of times, like, I would have to get a little part-time job or like a weird way of making money, or when you really wanted to like hit the books and make content and write a book or whatever, but it's like we gotta like eat and keep the lights on.
Or you could be like Michael Tessarian and charge like $500 for some weird course on tarot or something. You could do that.
I got a story about that guy. So I got 2 of them, 3 maybe. Yeah, anyways. Yeah, I really looked up to him back in the day.
Me too.
If you want to like go on this tangent, because he was one of the big teachers of like esoterica in the early 2000s. And he gave this lecture and he was talking about, oh my gosh, this is so funny. He was talking about these wizard bones of the giants that are buried in these specific places around the world that are like protected places.
I remember that. Very clear. Yes.
Like, what are these places? You know?
Yeah.
And I emailed him and I was like, tell me more. You know, I like your stuff. And he wrote back like, I do not know you. I'm not going to tell you where the wizard bones are buried. I was like, fine, I guess. Keep your secrets. You know, like
Mr. Tessarian.
Yeah. But then I met him at this conference in London, and I was like giving him all of this rundown about Disney and all this stuff. And he was like, email me that. I'm like, no, I think I'll just write my own book.
What? He wanted all your research?
Well, he wanted to know lots more. And I was like, nah. You won't tell me where the wizard bones are? I'm keeping Mickey Mouse.
Smart move. The one thing I'll say about him though is he at that for the stuff that he's into, he is an encyclopedic guy. Like he knows a lot of stuff. Not that it's accurate, but he just knows a lot of stuff. And he's actually the first guy that I heard about the Tavistock Institute about back in like 2008 or 9. So that's the only thing I'll give him credit for sure. Other than
I watched his whole Oracles and Origins DVDs.
Yes. Yeah.
They were really good. Yeah.
There was also the other one, something about the Fool. I can't remember. That was another one of his things with the tarot card and something in the Fool. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, he was a giant at that time, like the underground giant for sure.
Totally. And yeah, his thing was $500. I remember that.
Yeah.
Never could afford that one, but I did become really proficient in reading tarot cards, and that was one of the things that was helping on the bus when we lived on there. So like we literally, like the merry pranksters, you know, pull up to a town square and just like unfold the magic carpet, and we've got like a juggler literally juggling sticks, and we've got a magic astrologist man with a crystal ball, and we've got me with the tarot cards and like
awesome.
the patchwork skirt, like the whole shebang, right? And a tiny dog too.
Tiny dog too. Of course, you have to for Toto.
A little poodle with the pom-poms and all.
Oh boy.
And we did that for a year, traveling around, meeting all kinds of people, seeing all kinds of amazing things. We've probably seen every Freemasonic temple there was to see. That was worth any, like, we saw all the esoterica of Philadelphia with Mark Passio.
Oh, yes, of course. Mark Passio. Yes.
Yes. Who, we really loved him, and he treated us like royalty, and he showed us everything there was. We hanging out with Jay Parker. You remember him?
I do. Oh yeah. Oh,
OG ritual abuse guy.
oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. Oh my God. Yes.
And what else? Like, we toured New York City. Okay, so while we were doing that bus trip, we hit all of the occupies.
Oh yes. Classic.
So
Classic.
now we're in another wave of psyops and
Yes.
like people surging, trying to like unite and do a thing, but we don't know what we're doing.
Yep.
Right. We want to do this thing, overthrow the government or whatever. Like, we hate it. The patriarchy now it's called. I think a lot of girls, when they think of the patriarchy, what they're really thinking of is like the New World Order, and they just don't know the right word for it. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
So we went to Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Philly, Occupy New York, Occupy Lawrence, Kansas. I mean, like, and just you kind of notice how these things splinter so easily because there's not a center like you have in a religion.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. It's all very nebulous and everything keeps shifting and changing. And I remember everyone's attention, the way you're mapping this out, it's very good because everyone's attention would move and something would trend in the alternative. Let's call it the truth movement, whatever you want to call it. Something would trend every year. It'd be different. And it's true because it always had a similar flavor. I don't know if you found that, whether you were like going down the aliens rabbit hole or Lemuria and Atlantis, or then you start getting to like the Occupy movement. It all had very similar, similar markers, similar ideologies. It just the subject seemed to just change, but the same pattern was there. The pattern was similar. It's so weird. Like it is a psyop.
Well, what they wanted was just a financial goal, but they get there and it splinters off into, okay, so now we're all here. Now we're going to talk about, now I've got your attention. We're going to talk about women's issues, or we're going to talk about Black issues, or we're going to talk about immigration issues, or all of these identity politics, trans issues. And we're like, no, I thought we were talking about the banks and like literally all of our money that they just piss it away on like pizza, if you get my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm real not happy about writing checks. Okay. Because I at this point, I'm like, I'm participating in something so insidious that to even like do this to keep myself out of jail is like giving me a moral like quandary, because I know what you're doing with the money.
Yep. It was also around the time that they were doing the net neutrality thing. Do you remember all that? And then they were trying to like, which they have changed the internet since then. Like, remember how free it was around that time? So it was right around the Occupy Wall Street thing where they started changing the restrictions online and all that stuff. So it almost was kind of like hand in hand because of all the message boards. A lot of us were communicating through message boards, and people were like actually they were doing something on one level, and then on another they would do exactly what you said. They would be, hey, look at this shiny thing over here, feminism. Hey, look at this shiny over here. It was like the beginning of all that stuff, and so it's true, very true. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you there.
Oh, that's okay. It's so crazy to remember because this is like 12 years ago now.
Yeah, it's so
and
true.
We also, in the woo-woo land, we had the whole Mayan calendar.
Yes.
Right. December 21st is going to crash or something. I don't know. Oh, I skipped over the part in Y2K when my parents bought like an entire garage full of dried fruits and lentils and like.
Yes, I remember those. Oh, dude, yeah.
Apple chips for 10 years, like my mom, so fresh, okay? Just
yeah.
Freeze-dried apple chips. Yeah. So another 2012 event is supposed to happen. All of these Wall Street people, because I was like, why don't we just stay home and grow a garden? Or stop paying rent or stop paying your federal income tax, or just like super simple. You don't have to like go squat in Wall Street and be aroused by the police and like get beat up and like robbed one time and have to like pee at McDonald's. And like you could do things right here that are, what's it called? peaceful non-compliance.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Good point.
You don't have. I think people are just like wrapped up because they watched the whole civil rights psyop and they like made heroes out of those kind of people who just like threw bombs at the police or whatever.
Yep. Well, it's also because you had like Rage Against the Machine showing up at a lot of those things, so it was kind of promoting that MC5, that late 60s kind of ethos. So there was a lot. There was a lot of that.
Let's pillage and loot instead of just stay home and like make our own stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And try and gently unplug from the matrix. Okay. You don't want to like yank the umbilical cord out and be left with nothing. There are things that we can do to transition from where you are to where you want to get to.
Yep. And also during Occupy is when some people were trying to tell people, hey, we have Bitcoin. You can do this thing over here. You could use it. And then everyone was like, don't pay attention to that. Look at all this other shiny stuff. And I think that had a lot to do with it. They're like, look at all the shiny stuff, the chaos. Don't look at the Bitcoin thing.
Like, and it almost becomes a circus too. I've been to enough protests and marches to know it's just like a little parade. Yep. It's just for awareness and like it actually doesn't do anything. I'm remembering the Stop the Steal. If you want to like skip forward a little bit and we'll go back to 2012, but like we participated in that in 2020, and it was like Alex Jones and us and Nick Fuentes and Ali, who those people have, I mean,
you could say it.
Everything is going to be brought to light. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Everyone's sins are going to be laid bare, including my own. But a lot of people's is going to happen in this lifetime. So, but those were the characters leading this thing. And everyone is shouting, stop the steal, stop the steal. And we're all at the Capitol building in Atlanta and no one's there. The building's empty. You've got crowds of people screaming a slogan at an empty place. It's not like people are peeking out the curtains and be like, well, we better make the laws according to what is best for everyone because they're shouting. No. The cops have sent everybody home. That's not even in session that day. Like, we're literally doing nothing. So that just solidified the whole, like, protest thing. And thank God, because we were invited to J6. And who knows what would happen if we don't want to go to that. So anyways.
You guys are lucky. Glory to God, you guys didn't go to that. That would have been not cool. That would have been not cool for the Orthodox online community for sure.
Yeah. So this is what I'm seeing in 2012. Like, okay, this is not the way. Okay, the Mandalorian. This is the way. This is not the way. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, permaculture is a way. Spiritual help is a way because we can have the most perfect setup there is. You can have your Venus project from Zeitgeist, every machine running smoothly. If you don't get rid of greed, jealousy, lust, envy, all of these things, you're never going to have a good society, no matter how much everybody makes or how educated they are. Right?
Very true.
So we finish our trip. We get back to like somewhere safe before 2012 or December 21st, 2012. Right? Because we didn't want to be like sailing on the ocean in a school bus. So we're tucked back in somewhere like, barren and safe at this point. And everybody knows that was a huge nothing burger.
Yep.
Right? Literally nothing happened on December 21st, 2012. Like zero.
Yep. I was really into like Droomville Melchizedek and David Wilcox. Remember that dude? Yeah, I was into that stuff around that time. I was like, oh my God, totally. What's wrong with me?
I was there with you, bro. We were all like, it was the same characters for every one of us.
So true. True. How did you find orthodoxy amongst all of this stuff?
Okay, so after 2012, what did we do? I finally finished my book, so we published some books. I published 2, 3. We figured out how to do the monetization thing finally because we wouldn't have been able to like be steady enough to make content at the time, because now it's so easy. Like, you guys don't understand. We had a digital camera with a little card that had to go in it, and you had to take that card out and put it in another little thingy and plug that. There you go.
Yeah.
You don't just make a TikTok like this and post it in 5 minutes. Like,
Right. It's so true. It's so true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and for a lot of the stuff is audio only. Even when we started putting things on YouTube, it was still just audio, because we didn't realize that you can just go on camera however you look.
Exactly. That's a good point.
To have a studio and a hairstylist and makeup and whatever. I didn't know you could do it laying on your side on your pillow with your bonnet on. Like, get enough views, as you know. So did that, and then that's when I met Jay. So you asked how I was introduced to Orthodoxy. So I put on who do you want to hear on my show on Facebook, and I get all these replies, Jay Dyer, Jay Dyer, Jay Dyer. I'm like, okay, so we'll look him up.
Okay.
And this was in like 2015.
Okay. Yep.
And so we had him on, and he was really awesome, and he did like the whole show as Nicolas Cage, and we were like cutting up and goofy, and it just kind of grew from there. Like, kept working together, kept doing shows together, finally, do you want to meet? And and then that's the first time at his house that I ever saw icon.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'd probably seen one before, but I was raised Baptist, so we were like not Catholic.
Yes.
Right? So I just thought Orthodoxy was like Russian Catholics.
Yeah.
I was right, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, I almost became Orthodox a while ago. And I'm like, well, what is that? And so he's kind of telling me, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I'm still like doing tarot cards. I'm still like super non-committal when it comes to like marriage and stuff, and like I'll just be single forever. I don't care. Like as long as you love somebody, right?
Yeah,
I don't have to be married. Like, we can just be together.
Yeah. I remember those.
I was, and he wasn't really like going to church or anything either. So we were very like similar in our position. We had fondness for the church. We tried to be moral, live, good lives. We thought we were part of this truth crusade. And so, yeah, we just like slowly started going to church again. And we did like a long distance relationship for a long time while I started going to church in my own town and he started going in his own town.
So this is like around 2016, around that time?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then like I was going through like some hard times too, like transitioning houses a lot, and like maybe a new relationship, or like what is happening? Is this going to like be marriage, or is it going to be like something else? So it's like it was a very hard time for me, like physically and like emotionally. I went to work for my dad for a while. And that was its own like purgatory of its own, because I mean, he has his own like electrician's business, but it's not, how do I even put this? Like, working for my dad is so funny because it's just hell. Like, how do you even put it?
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Like, no, you're literally in hell. Like, this is a joke. Right? I'm going to wake up.
That is not what I thought you were going to say. You're like, this is hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am actually being like purged of all my sins, like by taking on this responsibilities and stuff. I mean, I could go into why it's so funny, but it's just like not where you want to find yourself at 35 years old, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Construction with your dad, your 75-year-old dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And what we would do, like what the jobs are, is like you get a house that's kind of torn up and then live in it while you fix it up.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I've done that with my dad back in the day. Yeah, yeah. I know
Yeah.
that what that's exactly like. That's like that's
So
horrible. That's
at
horrible.
one point in my life, I found myself with nothing but like an air mattress,
Yep.
a guitar, and a
Hmm.
Bible.
Hey, okay. That's an
And
interesting mix.
a job site in a beautiful mansion in San Diego, California, but it's not mine. And I'm just like I'm covered in dirt and paint and
Yes.
snot and
Yes.
a million other bodily fluids and
Yes.
chemicals. And you
Yeah.
lay down because you're so exhausted.
Yeah. I've
And
done it. I've done it. And you're
you wake up
coughing
and
up
do it again.
drywall dust and all that stuff. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, this kind of stuff is so funny too because it's not for any type of like legitimate. He has a license, but it's like it's not a company. Okay, it's just my dad who's like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Same.
no
Same.
benefit
Same.
for insurance or like
Yeah.
it's just a handshake, and I'm like, you still owe me 20 for lunch. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna take
Yeah.
it out of your paycheck. Okay.
I remember this. That's weird because I had a similar experience. That's really weird that you brought this up. I was like, I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a good blues song, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had the
You know,
guitar and the Bible. I mean,
and I had an icon too. I had like a
okay.
little Jesus icon that I got from San Francisco from the what's his name? The one
Oh,
who has not like decayed at all. But
Saint John. I forgot his last name.
Shanghai.
I know.
St. John
Oh,
of Shanghai.
Shanghai. Yeah, Saint John of Shanghai. That's right.
So yeah, my like 4 possessions, and luckily my grandma's getting rid of a bunch of clothes, so she like
Mhm.
get heaps of clothes. This is getting a little better. Like at least I can go through all these vintage clothes and like rebuild my wardrobe a little bit. While I work on this house, that was several months. So we were like texting back and forth and reading the Bible together every night, like after
Oh,
work.
that's cool.
Yeah, so we would just like set a time and read the same chapter at the same time and like text questions or talk about it or whatever. And this is like about the time one night I was literally hiding in a walk-in closet with all the lights out trying to wait for the tweakers that are also in the house to forget that I'm there.
Another turn I didn't expect.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes like you need help and you have to hire like day laborers and other people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hopefully they're going to do their thing and forget that I even exist.
Yeah.
So I'm like in a dark walk-in closet and with the door shut, and I'm like on the phone to Jay. He's like, "This is why you need to like come marry me." And I'm like, "Okay."
That's a good way to do it.
I'm like, the tweakers are tweaking. But yeah, so
what did you find sorry, coming out of all that new agey, whatever you want to call it stuff, how did you see orthodoxy? Because like for me, coming back as a cradle, I started to see the inversion of a lot of things that I was learning in the quote unquote occult world of like incense and like sound and all that, like the 5 senses engaged in it. And then when I revisited an Orthodox church again, and I started looking at it from that lens, like, you know, the stained glass windows, the geometry of the church, the incense, all that stuff. Did you kind of make those connections? Did that work for you in that way? Like, did you kind of see it like almost like unhypnotizing yourself, like kind of waking up to a different thing using different sensory
okay, I kind of had my like shackles up because I was suspicious of Catholicism from all the conspiracy research. You're like, okay, this is a systemic problem of like PDF files and Skittles and weird also.
Yep.
So I was like looking for any kind of funny business. Okay, I'm like, and you also get this thing like so many people are deceived, and I know better when you learn a lot of conspiracies. So you always have that kind of like ego struggle, like, well, they don't know about Bohemian Grove or they don't know about whatever. And so I was monitoring the Orthodox very closely. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I started going to this little church where I lived in Greenville, and it was not a cathedral yet. It was just, they had bought an old, like, little Baptist building or something in South Carolina. So it was like a little white one with a steeple, little white steeple. So they just had an iconostasis, really. And so the first time I went in there, I was real sad, and I was just kind of like needing help. Really, I need like a spiritual family and like people to talk to, and somebody who's actually like has a normal life. Everybody I know is a weird occultist or, is on heroin. I mean, just like, I just need some normal parents.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And some normal brothers and sisters. So I walk in there and I look in the narthex, and the whole thing is covered in the bishops in their like black hats and black robes and stuff. And I'm, what is this, Hogwarts? Like
the wizards. Yeah.
I'm like, why are they wearing a black robe? Satanists wear black robes. Yeah. So I sit through the liturgy and I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. This is like, the decorum here is nice. And so I had been to one liturgy with Jay in Nashville that was at a pretty temple. But, and I thought the kids were real cute, but at that time I still thought religion's kind of like, well, I'm spiritual and you guys are just, doing things.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Everyone thinks they know Christianity better than everyone else, right?
It's so true. Yep. I'm embarrassed of it now because I remember sorry to interrupt you, because I remember the first time, because I grew up Greek Orthodox. I grew up around Serbs and Russians and Greeks and all that stuff. So to me, like when I would tell people I was Orthodox, most of my life I had to explain to them I wasn't Jewish, right? Like that was usually the running joke amongst Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was either 2014, 2017, around that time, Jay was, there's two guys. It was Jay Dyer and James Perloff were the first two I heard saying that they were, because I was listening to Jay for like more of the conspiracy stuff and all that stuff. And then he starts mentioning, he would every once in a while drop this Eastern Orthodox thing. I'm like, Eastern Orthodox, like us Eastern Orthodox? And it was the first time I started to notice like, there's these people converting to Orthodox. And I thought it was silly. I was like, that's silly. That's silly. That's cute. That's cute. And then I started like, but you respect this guy and you respect James Perloff and a few others. And I was like, okay, what do they know that I don't know about my own faith? So to me, that was an interesting time, because I was deeply into Hermeticism and I was like really into it. And I viewed everything exactly like you just said, like I know more than they do about Christianity. And then they would, every once in a while, they would drop something. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like the Orthodoxy I know. And the reason why is because most of the Orthodoxy, the way I was looking at it was through the Protestant and Roman Catholic view. That's how I was looking at Christianity. So they started to say things that made me go, oh, maybe I don't understand my own faith. I mean, it took a couple of years later. Actually, it was like Death to the World and the whole punk to Orthodoxy pipeline that made me go, okay, now I have to ask a lot of questions. But it was originally Jay and James Perloff and a couple others just turning Orthodox, and it made me go, okay, this is weird. This is really weird. So for me as a cradle, it's weird hearing other people's stories, which I appreciate more, because I'm learning a lot more from converts, like a lot more than I thought I knew. And I think that's an important thing to point out. Sorry to interrupt you. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
You just unlocked a memory I had. I did try to go to a church one time when I was really sad. Like, it was the closest one. It was really big. It was a non-denominational, big families, lots of young people. It looked fun. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just meet somebody here. And I hated it. The whole thing. I hated it. Like, I was like, what? I had so much sorrow that I felt it made me more sad.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you guys so happy? This fucking sucks. Like, can I say that? Like,
yeah, totally.
Run the government, and how you can get in such a dark place that you feel like, how can we ever recover from this? And nobody even knows what's happening. And so that's an extra burden because they think you're crazy.
Yep.
And so I just like cried the whole time, and then I cried in the bathroom, and I cried in the car, and I'm like, I guess I don't want to go to that place again. So I did try like a fun, lively mega church,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and it did not hit the spot because
It's creepy.
Yeah.
Like because I didn't grow up with those types of churches. The first time I went into one, I was really confused. I'm like, what is happening here? This isn't church.
Yeah.
It was really creepy to me. It's like,
Yeah.
so weird.
So going to night services at the Orthodox church I was going to, it really did put a balm on suffering, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
Because it's really somber, and the candles are lit, and it's dark, and the hymns are not bright. They're very like thoughtful and repenting, and so it's like almost whatever you're going through, the services know.
Yes.
And it's different every time.
It really is like a hospital. Sorry, you got me excited because that was my thing.
Because one time it can be romantic, and one time it can be sad, and one time it can be happy, and one time it just like depends on where you are. It meets you there also as a person. So
true.
I got a lot of healing from that place. But it was also hard in a way because I am like, how much more niche down as a person can I get? A tinfoil hat, homeschooler, Orthodox Christian, like it's just, who's gonna, relate to me on anything? But luckily they're very sweet there at that church, and they would, ask me, what do you do for a living? And I tell them, and they're like, you could see the lady with the algebra meme, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I could see that.
And then I would just say, I just drive Uber, like, Uber, okay, how's that? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Did not have lots of girls to relate to, because I'm not a mother. What else?
Like what year are we talking about roughly when you started
taking catechumen class in like 2017, and I was receiving 2018.
Okay, that's earlier than I thought.
Yeah, and the people in my catechumen class were like longtime members, but also like hardcore staunch Democrats. And so I'm sitting there like trying to listen, and they're like, Bill Gates is a great philanthropist, and I'm like, okay.
Of course he is.
Yeah. Right. And I'm trying to, it's exercise in humility a lot, because you kind of just have to swallow it and be like, now's not the time to expose powerful lies. Okay. At catechism. Yes. So you just have to nod and be like, that's sweet. Not at the teachings, but at the students, and at like, and also a lot of priests, because we saw in COVID, a lot of them are going to go towards authoritarianism.
Oh yeah.
And not rationally think about like mandates and stuff. Right. So that was another like eye-opening thing. Not that I'm criticizing the church or saying that. I
understand.
It's just kind of like frustrating when you have to submit to people who you feel like don't know as much. And that's a humility thing too, right?
Oh, yes. I'm facing that right now. I understand. Yeah.
And again, like I would try and tell them, Disney is a cult and evil. And I think your congregation benefit from maybe like a couple of talking points that we don't, maybe we could boycott it as an orthodoxy, or I'm saying like, this is evilness.
Yeah.
Know about the devil? I do.
Of course.
Again, not super interested. They were interested in Jonathan Hanshaw, though. Not that I have anything them, but I'm like,
I understand. Yeah.
add a lot of cherries on top of what you're saying because they're all
Yep.
very interested in symbolism now. And like the dark side of media, I'm like, I could have lots of resources, but there's something in me. Maybe I'm like too Hermione from Hogwarts.
You're too what? Say that again. You're too what?
Hermione from Hogwarts.
I didn't watch any of that.
Oh,
So
like,
I'm sorry.
A little know-it-all, maybe. So I kind of
I see.
keep that in check.
Really? Okay. Well, you don't come. Well, I can imagine you and Jay in church during that time, kind of being like, well, I could see that.
And it was hard because he didn't really find a lot of priests that were on board with what he did for, the conspiracy stuff. And thankfully, we found a great one here in Florida, but a lot of times they just don't want to hear it.
Yes.
So what else? So then we got married in 2020, and we had one of those super popular COVID weddings that everyone wanted to come to.
Super popular.
Yeah.
Super popular.
Oh
yeah.
It was fine. So half the people wore masks that wanted to, and like half didn't that didn't want to.
Yeah. I get it. I left Canada, so I understand. I understand.
That was a really big dent in the camaraderie.
Yes.
And also there was an incident like about, do I even want to bring this up?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
A CIA agent started going to the coffee hour at my old church via Zoom and made friends with a bunch of people there and had a conference saying how conspiracy theories were not true and the people who entertain them are mentally disabled.
Yep.
And 9/11 is the official story. There's nothing weird about it. Like going down the line of, I had been trying to, interject things into people's consciousness. I can't help it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know. Yep.
And I had gotten to a point where people, because literally one lady told me I need to see like a doctor.
Yeah, I've been there. I understand.
I'm like, lady, you have no idea. A doctor I can't afford $100 an hour to tell him like all the stuff that's going on in my head. So you just
that
alone.
Yeah.
Right. There's no doctor in the world who would understand what I'm going through in my head. Only Christ is the doctor that would understand.
Well, it's good that now all these things have happened because now you know where you stand with many people within the church on these subjects and many more. It's good because like a lot of the ones that were kind of hiding what they really felt are now like talking about it openly or have been for the last couple of years. So it kind of opens the door for a lot of us to I was talking about this today with the interview I did earlier, and another incident that's occurring. I kind of got pulled into one of these things, kind of what you're describing now. And I wonder, like, did you guys read Father Seraphim Rose? Like some of them that are criticizing they're Orthodox. And I'm like, did you actually read the book that you're talking about? Because if you did, you'd understand if you would view him as a conspiracy theorist. Do you not view, you know what I mean? And it's kind of annoying because they're quoting him, but they're not like reading him. I'm like, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future, Nihilism, the Survival Guide is clear. Like it's clear. Like there's no debating here. And it's weird. It's really weird.
Nobody even brought up that book to me. So I don't even think they were familiar with it.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, especially when people are like calling out, someone a name or whatever, but yet they're talking about literally a priest that would back that up, and soon to be saint that would back up all those claims. It's really annoying. It's really especially when it's in our own circle. You know what I mean? There's so many few of us, like we shouldn't be doing this. It
is a very small world, and I thought there would be more camaraderie, especially like with Jay, because you can't. I mean, if you have a problem with his abrasiveness, that's one thing, but like the facts are the facts.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so that's what the criticism he gets is like, he's mean or whatever. He's curt.
Yeah, I've been told. I've been told.
But you can't argue with what he's saying.
No,
And I
and
just thought,
you can also argue. Sorry to interrupt you. You can also argue that there's a lot of people that have come to the faith through his work, and others like
so
him.
many, so
So
many.
many.
Like I went to a catechism class, and it was 5 people,
Hmm.
maybe regular, like maybe 2 or 3 regular. And when I left, when we joined and we got married, and we made it public, and like we were talking about it all the time. When I left that church, there was 100.
Yep.
And so just
Yep.
within 2 years, even
Yep.
it increased that
Sure.
much. And I know priests were like, "Oh, I'm sick of hearing that you heard about the church through Jay Dyer, and we don't like him." But I just felt hurt because nobody ever tried to contact him or us and be like, "My son, like maybe you should try this, this, and this." They just immediately attack.
Yes.
And so we're just kids too, right? I'm just a baby, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if we're doing something wrong, we obviously want to know.
Absolutely.
Like we go to confession, we go to liturgy, we go to our priest, like we have a relationship, we go to church. We're not just weird online weirdos, okay? We're doing this, like, so they made that one thing where I don't even want to bring this up, but okay, so there was some pushback during COVID and after about like the Dyers. So,
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I
um,
remember.
and yeah, that just really hurt me that they could just pick up the phone.
Yeah, and it was a really weird time, and it still is. It still is because now it's back. I'm getting pulled into some of this stuff recently, and I think it's unfounded because someone's attacking my church father, and I'm like, did you hear what he had to say? Like, did you actually listen? Someone, for example, with Jay, someone criticized him and said he never talks about the church fathers and he never gives spiritual advice. I said, well, you've never listened to Dyer. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, he always talks about the church fathers. There's like 1,000 episodes I can flood you with, number one. And number two, he's clear to say that he doesn't give spiritual advice. So like, what are you talking about? That's not what he does. He mostly focuses on apologetics and other things. And I'm like, did you ever hear him say something that you disagree with? And then, it's just ridiculous. It's silly. I think people that criticize individuals like that, they're not actually listening to what they're saying. Either they're jealous of the attention they're getting, or they don't like the fact that they're being questioned on things that he may have brought up.
Right.
So those are usually the two things that I hear.
He brings up things they don't have answers to. And I think for sure that's irks a lot of people. So it just kind of, when you grow up, you realize there's no like perfect club. There's no perfect church. Like there's no place where no one's going to argue.
Yes, very true.
And if you grow up in an environment where people are arguing a lot, you're searching for that like peaceful place where everyone gets along and we're going to be a happy family. We're going to have all these holidays and it's going to be so beautiful and Pascha. You're right. But it's not like that. And it's amazing though, because the church knows it's going to be like that. And it makes a way of your suffering. Like you have to love your neighbor and forgive the people at your parish.
Yes.
And these are the wackadoodles that are going to like lead to your salvation, right?
Yes.
The person right next to you that you do not like, you want to get away from them into your perfect cocoon. There is no such thing. They're always going to be among you. So
now we're kind of really well put.
Well, I think that segues perfectly into like wrapping this up at like where we are now with the Orthodox online, and also like getting flooded with like weird masculinity ideas, red pill ideas, pickup artist ideas, trad stuff.
Yes.
Trad like fetish. So it's all kind of being funneled into some kind of like religious man.
Yes.
And it's a sad thing to watch from like what me and my friends started in 2005-ish. Now men and women don't even love each other anymore. Like all I wanted was like end the Fed and, you know, maybe not have PDF files in charge.
Yeah. Simple request.
I have goals, but now we all hate each other and we fight 24/7. And you get on Twitter. I know a priest who got on Twitter. He exploded. Everyone loved him. And then the last we checked in, he had to delete it because of mano bros. A simp, being super disrespectful and hating women. Like, if I did not have men and women hating each other in my mind at all for where we would arrive at. This just kind of blew up out of nowhere.
Yes.
And so from a person's perspective who's been watching PSYOPs since they were like in diapers, I don't want to be annoying, but it's like I've watched these things over and over and over, and you guys fall for the same things every single time.
Yes. That's what 100%. I fully agree. And that's what's bugging me now. It's almost like they've weaponized the good stuff and they flipped it on each other, like getting married, having like a family, putting it all together. They kind of, within our own little circle, they're flipping that. Like I'm pretty sure I know which priest you're talking about and a few others like that. And it's like they weaponize that within our own community. And everything is like at a boiling point. All the things you mentioned, the red pill, the manosphere stuff, everyone challenging things that used to be super obvious. Like completely obvious. Like you shouldn't be debating certain things. Like it's pretty like the Skittles, a lot of the Skittles issues are pretty black and white, no pun intended. You know what I mean? And it does feel like a psyops. Like we've come to the end where they're taking all the truths and they're using the truths against each other, if I could put it that way.
Yeah, I've done multiple streams on this. It's really sad to watch because I'm a romantic person.
Yeah.
You know, I love like love and relationships and weddings and babies and, you know, the usual. Okay, I'm not like, I don't cry at everything, but I cry at some things.
Yeah.
So just to watch the complete and utter, I guess you would call it an alchemical coagula or solve. What solve is where you disintegrate, right? Dissolve.
Yes, solve it. Yep.
Coagulate come together. But they've just dissolved love and they have boiled it down to its lowest, like, base, transactional. It's so weird to watch.
It is. It's so
the value of a person.
Yeah, it's all based in the passions. Everything, like they've doubled down on all things passions and the enemies. You know, the flesh, the world, the flesh, and the devil. It's all present in all of the ways that they kind of manipulate our attention to only value these things on a basic level, like you said, a transactional level. It's just like shake hands after and walk away.
Yeah, and they try and take something beautiful like family and how we support family and we don't really promote birth control and we like, you know, let the family grow, right? Yes. But they kind of twisted it in a weird way. Now that's the only thing that women are good for, right?
Good point.
And I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, we're a church, not a fertility cult. Okay, there are places for people who are single.
Yeah.
There are places for people who are elderly. There are places for people who don't have children. Okay, like married couples that don't. We don't worship the birthing process, and we don't have kids just for the sake of having children.
That's a good point.
Right, that's a byproduct of love.
Yep.
Or that's at least that's what we were taught in our premarital counseling by a priest that we had to, you know, for weeks and weeks we had to meet with him. He was like, children are beautiful and wonderful, but it's not the purpose of the marriage. Right.
That's a good point. Yep.
So they are, I feel like they're deconstructing the entire family and marriage and love into these tiny little like utilitarian things. Mother must stay home and birth 8 children. Father must go out and earn money. And he even said that in our premarital counseling. He's like, maybe Jamie will have to get a job if you get sick. You know, what
Okay.
if you die, if you like, what are you going to do? Just keep women without agency from everything? You can't. That's not even ethical to do. Like, what if she has no family? Like, this is how it was back in the day. Like, if you don't have a son, you might die.
Yeah. That's true.
But now, thankfully, like, little old ladies can survive on their own with cats if they want them.
Yeah.
But
I never thought about it that way.
You have to have a place for everyone. And so, like, what if you have a child and it dies? And you're not allowed to have another one? Like, are you worthless in society now? So it's just all of these ideas. And they're just trying to break you down and make you feel like you're nothing. You're nothing without all of these achievements that I have deemed that what make people happy.
That's a good point.
You know, I know a priest's wife who has 10 children. And we were kind of joking. I said, you know, when I was little, I wanted 10 kids because I wanted a big family. You know, that was my like goal when I was a teenager. I want to have lots of kids. And she goes, well, you have 0. And I'm like, I know, it's not, you know, it wasn't meant to be. She's like, yeah, I have 10 kids. I don't even like kids. She's like,
okay.
Yeah. She was just blunt about it. She's like, I'd rather do my job and my hobbies than my whatever. Like, I love them, but I don't like, you know, child rearing. She was a matushka. Okay. So this idea that you have to follow this written script that young boys are giving nowadays, don't even get me started.
Yeah.
And so when the whole thing happened, like in the assassination, because some women were on the Secret Service, they're like, oh, this is terrible, women's Secret Service, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, that lady also tried to give her life for her country, right? Women can blend in where men can't. Women can be useful in espionage where men can't.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether or not she was a feminist conspiracy or not, it made this whole discourse, well, women shouldn't be cops. Period. Okay, do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So you got me thinking.
Well, listen, what happens if a woman is getting arrested and she needs a search? What happens when there's a domestic violence and the babies will not stop crying because the cop is a male? What happens at a female prison if you don't have any women correctional officers?
Good point.
So this whole idea that is coming down these streams. Okay, so I see. Do you even want to continue? I think I've.
It's really up to you. I was going to ask you because you got me like, I was like, okay, I hadn't thought about some of this stuff. It's totally up to you. You tell me.
Okay. Well, this is what I'm seeing right now. So it's like, yes, they are taking the sexes, both of them, and trying to convince you that you are nothing. And they do this to men through porn.
Yes.
And they have broken down all of their frontal lobes. Talk about brain rot, skibbity toilet, Ohio Riz, all of that. So if you're on a screen and you're watching naked ladies your whole life, your frontal lobe is not developing properly, okay? This is your empathy. This is where you make rational decisions. Talk about men being logical. Okay, well, you're just like eating all of your logics away by doing this.
Yep.
And so they're attacking the boys in that way. They're attacking the girls in a different way. God is fair. He's not going to create a gender that gets off the hook.
Yes.
Okay. God is the God of justice. He's not going to create women that are judged on a like easier sliding scale than men. He's fair, right?
Yep.
So I feel the women's attack and men feel the men's attack. They don't feel the women's attack, and our algorithms are all different, and they're just like making us into who the devil wants us to be instead of who God wants you to be. I know the phone is trying to like get me to like run away and like do bad things. Like I already know that because of what it shows me all the time. So I can only speak to what the media makes the women feel like. Because I'm not a man, I don't know that experience. But I can empathize that it's very hard for you to escape these traps. Believe me, I've loved men in theory and practice my whole life. Like I said, we had that whole commune house where I was like the Wendy. Okay. So don't ever call me a feminist that hates men, because I have served and fed many more men's bellies than any of these people have. But where was I even going with that? What was I saying?
Well, the way that they're programming both men and women, and you don't know men's trauma, right. Struggle, but you know the women's.
I do, but I empathize with it because I see that you're trapped in this like trawler's net of corn, and can't break away from it. And the phone won't even let you. And so you're seeing women and all of life through this lens. It talk about a glass darkly. I mean, this is like crusted over. This isn't even light shining through. Okay, you're in a dark room. You can't even see the window when you're looking at that stuff. So you can't even interpret the world correctly. And this is what happens when you start going to Orthodox churches and you start healing. You go to confession. This is the therapy that everybody like needs, right, in their life.
Bravo. Yep.
And you start going, oh, I am an asshole. I am a piece of shit.
Yes,
I am a problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's true. So it's training your brain every week to think, what could you do better in this situation instead of judging all these other people? And then when you get to a certain point, it's not like you're judging them anymore. It's almost like you see a crusty, pus-filled like bus, like.
Yep, like a sick person.
Yeah. Let me squeeze that for you. I'm helping you. Okay. All over you. Like, let's get that out.
Yeah.
With love. True. Okay. I'm not thinking.
It seems like Andrew Bernays' century of self. A lot of the stuff you're describing, it's like the century of self. Like everything is like valuing the self to the point where we disconnect from all things. So the way you just described that, I didn't think about a lot of the things you pointed out there. That because everyone's kind of look at it now from the male perspective, that the male is being under assault, and I always looked at it that women are devalued because like they're not even like looked at as like, oh, you can make a baby and all this stuff. But then you brought up a lot of good points there that I didn't really consider. They're really messing with us at this point.
Well, think of it this way. Okay, so the the push to make all of these babies, and to make people feel bad who don't.
Yeah.
Is really insidious, because what we're going up against is a fertility crisis. And it's a lot of people through no fault of their own, because of the stuff in the food, in the water, the chemicals, all of it, right? They're not going to be able to have a baby. And then they're telling, and they want to be a good they want to be a good wife. Okay, let's not call it trad wife, because that's a fetish thing. But, they want to be a good wife and mom and a citizen, right? Normal person. But they're not going to be able to because of things outside their control. So does that make them a bad person who doesn't deserve to live?
Very good point. Very good point. Because I've been trying to focus a lot on repentance, confession, repentance, and looking at the self and doing my best to learn how to forgive, which I'm horrible at. But you're right, because are they just a horrible person? Even if they were brainwashed or programmed to think a certain way, can they not walk back from that? Can they not be redeemed? I think you bring up a really good point there.
Yeah. So I've been getting a lot of backlash lately.
Yeah, I noticed.
I think I'm being reasonable. Okay.
I think so too.
It's funny. When you reach a certain age, you kind of do get like, okay, you're a child. Like what you're saying is the perspective of someone who's like 20, 30 years younger. So it really doesn't apply. And you're like, their thinking is so stringent and black and white. And, this is good and this is bad. And a woman does this and a man does this. And God's going to kind of knock that out of you if you continue, because like they're saying, if my wife gets fat, then I can divorce her.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's so not Christian.
And they call me a feminist. And it's funny because if you go to my first or second book that I was written in 2011, I'm critiquing feminism before these people were even like, they're in diapers farting on the floor. And I was writing this.
Yep.
Okay,
No,
and they're now calling me a feminist. I'm like, maybe you should have a little respect, young man. I don't know. I hate that.
Yes.
I want to be cool, but it's like not working.
No, don't be cool, man. Be yourself. Like be raw, be real, be honest. Because this is a problem. I feel you 100%.
Well, if a priest can get bullied off of Twitter for being a simp,
then
man,
I don't know what's going on.
Is this going to go? And so we're watching psyops on psyops, and I'm just watching these things unfold, and I'm like, what the heck, man? Because why would you bring up taking women's vote away in election year? I mean, I understand where you're going with this. Like, the family is a unit. Maybe we should like have some reform. Like, not everybody gets the same say. Like, a legal doesn't have the same vote as, like a business owner.
Yep.
But why are you purposely trying to piss women off? This is kind of just what I see. I see like, and they're like, men are going to church and women are going to hell. That's what they say on Twitter every day, right? Young men are joining the churches in droves and women can piss off, and we're going to like Vietnam to get a wife. But they're...
It's true. Yeah. The passport bros or whatever they call them. Yeah.
They're like directly doing things that would upset women. So why do you do this? Like, does God treat you like that?
Yep.
Or does God dictate you have to get up at this time and you have to do this chore and you have to take care of this and you have blah, 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 blah. If you love me, you'll do this list. God doesn't relate to us like that. Right? Does God say you're a hoe? You need to repent. Does God, no, he woos us. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Christ woos us by being there, being faithful, being loving, like righteous. Right?
Yep.
And so we're attracted to that because of who he is. He doesn't make us do anything. That's the whole point, right? So we have free will.
Exactly. Yeah. Free will. That's important to look at it that way.
Treatment of his wife is a reflection of how Christ treats us. Then it was all, I don't know what the disconnect is. Like, a guy treats your wife a certain way is that how God treated you?
I think part of it is because there has been so much backlash for so many years that we're pounded on one side of the fence that we double down on it. You know what I mean? Like you just got treated like crap for so long, like men or whatever however you want to see it. It's such a perfect psyop. It's just a perfect psyop, and then it's a great way of getting everyone to turn on each other and play these pretend roles exactly you're describing without applying free will to the whole thing. You bring up a lot of. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I could see this. Okay, you got me thinking, man.
Well, you're gonna get a lot of feminist comments, but I can pull up my old book from 15 years ago and my notes about anti-feminism. I've already come to these conclusions. Okay, we're past that.
Yeah, there's a lot of role playing out there, though, and I think you're calling that out. If I could put it simply, I think you're calling out a lot of the role playing. It's something that I was talking about today with, not about this subject, but with Father John and Father Turbo. It's like wearing the jersey, wearing the shirt, wearing the band shirt of like, look at me, I'm this side or that side, without any of the praxis. Because I think what you're getting at is you're talking about praxis. You're talking about understanding the mechanics of how God would view it, applying free will to the whole thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that you're referring to are playing a part. And maybe it's because they've been turned into golems, not Gollum as in the movie, but where they're possessed, kind of like the Mickey Mouse character, like of becoming the robot, and kind of like this breath of demonic life where people take on a part and a role, and actually instead of actually believing it and living the part that you're describing, they're actually playing a part. I think if I could put it that way.
So a lot of the voices from online, they kind of muddy the waters of like, what is orthodoxy? Because
Yes.
what does an orthodox life look like? And so that's why you have to go to your own priest in your own parish, because that's like what is right for you. There's no cookie cutter family. I mean, outside the sacraments, and there's no gay marriage and stuff like that. But
I hope.
I was watching this one show, and this panel of boys was like, young boys. There was like, there's no such thing as divorce in God's eyes. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. And the girl said, well, what if your wife cheats on you? And they, oh, well, yes, of course. Then you have to divorce.
Yep.
So like, okay, so there is such a thing. Like, I think the internet has made everyone stupider. And remember I don't want to get you in trouble, but like
I'm already in trouble.
There was a guy who made a manifesto. He did some bad things. Yes, those were bad, but he wrote this.
Yes.
It was like pretty spot on about like what will happen if we allow this to take over our society. He went a little too far with that. That's why we have the church, and we have like grounded. There's a reason for all of our suffering, and that was something in contrast to things like I study like Buddhism or other like mystical paths, which I am like have a cursory knowledge of pretty much all of them. But in Buddhism, you're supposed to be ultimate detachment, right? So your suffering comes from detachment, or your attachment to things, but the way out of that is detachment. I'm like, that doesn't really help on a day-to-day basis when you're just trying to live a life. And if you have children, you have relationships, you have family, you have to be attached to things. It's not practical to go through life just saying, I don't care. Okay, you're the ultimate Marcus Aurelius or whoever. Like, just don't care. That's not practical. You're going to care because you have humanity in you. You have like biology and emotions and all of these things that are going to care about things. So the church really helps you put suffering into perspective, that it can be for a good purpose. It's not something to be eliminated, because suffering can be like, I lifted weights and I was suffering at the time, but then I got stronger.
Yes. Suffering is a gift from our perspective.
Right. So yeah, I guess we could just wrap it up. Like, this is the therapy that everyone needs. It's being co-opted in weird ways right now. Please don't make somebody online your Orthodox, like, not even me, not even Mano, not Jay, not anybody. Like, your own spiritual father is your spiritual father given to you by God, not me.
Amen.
I'm just a tinfoil hat. Like, I'm just a beggar who knows where to find bread. That's it. So I defer all of the big questions for your life to your spiritual father, right? If you want to know it's me, I can tell you that. But yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about like the youngins, the young boys and the young girls. I'm kind of worried about them.
I hear you. That's really well put. And it's a big emphasis I've had on my show too. We're just idiots with cameras and microphones. Go talk to a priest, go to a church, get that counseling that you need. Okay. You know what? This was a really interesting episode. I love everything you said. I love the twists and turns. There was a couple of surprises. I was like, wow, okay, this is awesome.
Okay.
Jamie, I really want to thank you for doing this. You have no idea. This is like, I know you're a busy person. So I thank you for taking your time out to do this. If you have anything you want to pitch, you know how this goes. Pitch away, and I will make sure everyone gets all your links and all that stuff.
Okay. I have a show on YouTube under my name, Jamie Hanshaw, Out of This World on YouTube, where we have guests and we talk about all sorts of stuff. Next week, we're talking about aliens. So this week we did the book Spare by Harry Windsor.
Yep.
And next week we're doing aliens with Adam Weishaupt. Spare was with Basilite Analyzer, and then Adam Weishaupt, aliens next week. And then Rockfin, I have a secret channel. So only for VIPs. I don't promote it that much because we get into such dark, deep, black defense against the dark arts is what I call it.
I love it.
That is not for everybody, nor should it be. But if you are, like conspiracy 301 or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the master's program there on Rockfin. And what else? Jay Dyer. We're going to be doing Secret Architecture of DC tomorrow on InfoWars. So stay tuned.
Awesome. That's. I'm going to try to let everybody know about that because I don't know if I'm going to get this out by then. But that's interesting. That's interesting.
Okay, cool.
Jamie, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, Mana.
This is and you are watching your eye or no more.